Hi folks, it's Andy. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. We have got lots of questions for you today. There's 6 whole pages here of questions. So we're going to jump right to them in just a minute, and it's going to be a bit of a quick fire show. Before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Shop at KendoStar, the best kendo equipment website in the history and future of the human race. Support the channel, and let's get started. Okay, hi Andy Fish Sensei. I just wanted to ask advice on something that has eluded me since starting Kendo last year. Kiai is something that I cannot seem to get right. People I've spoken to say it will come, but no one seems to be able to explain the technical steps to produce good, loud Kiai. Can you explain? Thank you. Okay, this question comes up every now and again. Just a point of technical thing. And this isn't you, because this is I haven't got time to be going off topic with all these questions we've got, but Kiai isn't actually the word for what it is that you're referring to. It's the word that's most commonly used outside of Japan. I realise that. But what you're talking about is shouting. All right, shouting. Kiai is fighting spirit in a way. And whereas what you're referring to, which is the shout, which is a kind of manifestation of Kiai, is called hase. Hase. Okay, it's the general word that's used. Sometimes it's called kake-goe. Sometimes it's called kake-goe, but the actual word is hase, which means shouting. Okay. So in terms of that, okay. I haven't got the answer that you want, I'm afraid, all right, because it's just not how it works, all right? Yes, the hase, the shout, shouldn't come from your throat, right? It should come from inside your lower body, your abdomen, your diaphragm, stuff like that. People who are, like, I've heard people, very good Kendoka, I've heard them talk even about taking singing lessons to help them improve their breathing, especially in relation to the hase. I don't know much about that, so I can't comment on it. But what I can say is if you start just screaming from your throat, then it's going to hurt, and you're not going to, you're not really going to get the good, effective hase. So it has to, how can I say, like, think about, like, if I was to shout to somebody far away, like, if I shout in my throat, it's not going to be as much as if I use my breath from my diaphragm. You know what I mean? Now, again, at the same time, the reason I don't have a good answer for you, I can't say do this and it's going to improve. The answer is, unfortunately, what you've been told. It will come with practice. It will come with practice. It will. And if I'm honest with you, even now, it's something that I personally have hit a bit of a, I wouldn't say a wall with, but it's something that I'm also kind of navigating right now as well in my own Kendo, because I'm not super happy with the way that I sort of project my hase either. But it's going to be something that as you progress in Kendo, you're going to get to grips with, and you're going to develop a kind of, it's kind of fluid in a way. It's kind of malleable as you progress in Kendo, as your Kendo changes, as you get more experiences, and as you go through different phases of not only your progress, but of your general life as well. It's going to change. So don't marry yourself too much to the idea, all right? Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it, okay? Don't overthink it. I think that's the other thing, is people are trying to kind of perfect it straight away, and it's going to take a long time and practice, all right? Because when people say it will come, it doesn't mean in the next week. It doesn't even mean in the next year. It takes a long time, all right? So just keep it up, all right? And don't think about it too much, okay? Next one. Stay. What do you think of training with a dummy? I mean the apparatus. Thanks as always. I'm glad you clarified that. What do I think of training with a practice dummy? It's not something I utilize that much. It can be useful. It can be useful for tenuage practice, all right? But it's not the be all and end all. So for specific types of practice, and if you focus on practicing what you're supposed, so if you focus on getting the correct striking form in terms of your tenuage, in terms of how the shinai is connecting with the target, it's good for that. It's good for that, okay? But it's not a replacement for suburi. because suburi is also super important in different ways. Okay, so don't think I think it's a good practice tool. I don't have one myself, and I don't use it much. But my daughter, when she was at high school, they used tires more than practice dummies. But there was a practice dummy in the dojo, which sometimes they'd use for, like I say, hitting practice. But they would use tires, like old car tires, on wooden stands. They would practice hitting that to develop their hitting technique. So there's definitely something to be said for it. Okay. Sensei, isn't suriashi a form of the sliding foot, and ayumiashi the form of not crossing the foot, and okuriashi the form of frog jumping with the foot without sliding? If not, then what are they, and whatever is the difference? Many YouTube videos show conflicting information about what suriashi actually is, and I believe there's confusion with ayumiashi. Thank you as always. All the love, all the power. Thank you very much. Okay, right. I don't have a issue here. So, okay, yeah, what you're saying isn't quite right. Okay, the way you've defined it's not quite right. So, the three terms here we're talking about: suriashi. I need to stop that. Ayumiashi and okuriashi. Okay. Suriashi is sliding footwork, and it's there's another one I'm going to add, right? And I'm going to put it here. Fumikomi ashi. Okay. So, suriashi is a sliding footwork. So when we slide our feet across the ground, that is suriashi. Okay. Sliding. Okay. Fumikomi ashi is when we do the stamp. You leap and stamp with the right foot out usually. Okay, but it could be a different one. All right. Stamping. Okay. Ayumiashi. Ayumu in Japanese means to walk. So ayumiashi means a crossing footwork. So when the feet cross, right foot, left foot, right foot. Okay. So like in kata, or when we start this. Okay. When we do day. Okay. You're at the sageto here. Day, taito, 3 steps in, right? Using ayumiashi. Okay. So that's crossing, walking. Okay. And then okuriashi is where we go right forward and then left up behind. Okay. Dan, like this. This is okuriashi. Okay. I know it's all confusing because they're all finishing the word ashi. Ashi means foot. So in this case, it's referring to footwork. Okay. It can mean leg as well, but this one is okuriashi. Okay. Durden. Of course, backwards is this way. Yeah. So let's call it 1, 2. Okay. Now, why do these get mixed up? People often confuse the terms suriashi and okuriashi. All right. Now, almost all of the footwork we do in kendo, almost, is suriashi. Means we slide our feet across the floor. We don't walk, dun. Okay? Except when we leap to strike, which we use our fumikomi ashi. Okay? And we do fumikomi into suriashi, right? So, ayumi ashi, when we do it in kendo, as I said, like when you do day, that's also suriashi. It's also suriashi because it's sliding. Suri and suriashi means to kind of like rub together. I think it's the same kanji. I think as same one as suriagemen. You know, so it's like rubbing together. I think suru means to like rub. I think. So, I think that's the right translation off the top of my head. Anyway, or to slide. It's more like rub. But anyway, let me check that. Yeah, okay, good. I was doubting myself for a second. Yeah, it's more like that, right? It can mean other stuff as well. I mean, Japanese is full of homophones, but that kanji can mean other stuff as well, depending on the context. But I digress. All right, when the feet are sliding or rubbing across the floor without stepping, yeah, that's suriashi. Whether it's okuriashi or ayumiashi, okay. So ayumiashi and okuriashi refer to the pattern of movement of the feet, whereas suriashi refers to the method of movement. Does that make sense? Right? So you do both ayumi ashi and okuri ashi with suri ashi. Okay? With suri ashi. Like when we do kirikaishi, yeah, most common pattern is big men with fumikomi, bam. Then we do the renzoku sayu men, yeah, with suriashi, and that's done with okuriashi. Okay, when you're hitting. Receiver does the suriashi, and they do ayumiashi with suriashi. Okay, yeah. So I know it's a bit confusing because it's all ashi, ashi, ashi. All right. Okuru means the okuru from okuriashi, by the way, means to send. So it's and fumikomi is a bit different, but the okuru means to send. So it means you're sending one foot out with the left foot, sending and then bringing it up. Okay. Fumikomu means to like leap into something in a way. Fumu is the stamp, but something plus komu is to like into something. So it's a bit of a different concept. We don't really have it in English, but that's the differences. Okay, that's the differences, and that's why this confusion. All right, sorry. I hope that makes sense. Hello, Auntie, saying to my opponents who are shorter than me often attack my kote. I'd appreciate your guidance how to use this situation to my advantage. I'm Nidan. Thank you very much. Great. So your opponents are most likely to hit kote. Great. So allow them to hit the kote. Okay, allow them to hit the kote. But use this as a great opportunity to use your Oji-waza. Okay, so you should be really good at doing the, if they're going to hit the kote. Okay, come on then. Pam pam. I got them in. Oh. Go on then, kote. There it is. Bam bam. Kote kaishi men, yeah? Be careful with the kote nuki men though, especially if you're a lot bigger than them. You don't want to split the head in half, yeah? But, suriage, bam bam. Do the nuki men as well, but bam bam. No, don't be careful though, because you're making a big swing with the shinai, right? Especially like lots of people after hitting kote will duck their head like this, don't want to hit them here, all right? So you need to be responsible, all right? But don't see it as it's a positive. It's a positive. Yeah. If I knew that there was an 80% chance that my opponent was going to hit my kote, I'd be in massive advantage. Massive advantage. All right. The difficult thing is when you think they're going to hit your kote and they hit your men. So yeah. So it means you're going to have left. Get into the distance. Welcome it, but have your feet ready to go. Okay. That's the key. All right. How slow is too slow as a beginner? How much should be learned at the dojo and how much practice at home? Okay, so it depends on the context of too slow, all right? So it's important that you get things correct before you go fast, all right? So the priority should be doing things correctly and getting things correct before you worry about doing things quickly, all right? So that's the first thing I would say in that regard. In terms of learning at the dojo and learning at home, now this is a controversial one because lots of people say don't practice at home. No, you'll reinforce bad habits. But sorry, like people reinforce bad habits at the dojo. Sensei can't watch you all the time. He can't watch you all the time. And I would say that practicing at home is better than not practicing at home. So in general, my students are there's a clear visible difference in their progress between those that practice at home and those that don't. What I would suggest though is if you are going to practice at home, don't try to practice something that you don't know much about. Just keep it basic. If I were you, and I'm not even kidding you, if I were you, if you want to practice at home, right, just do some basic stability at home, right? And here's what you can do, right? Do this, right? And I guarantee you'll improve, all right, because you'll naturally start to get better, and as you go to the dojo, and especially if you got a dojo practice 5 days a week, which most of us don't, that's different. But even then, but you don't, right? You have it once or twice a week, probably. Okay, so if you really want to improve fast, especially for a beginner, right? If you know how to do joge suburi, and you know how to do, let's say, Zenshin men, so just men and back to kamae. And you also know how to do the Zenshin kotai, so men forward and men back, right? Do 50 of each a day. If you can do 100, yeah? Just do that, right? And you can't, focus on doing it right. I know I'm out of focus. I'm talking about focus and I'm out of focus. But focus. There we go. Focus on doing it correctly as much as possible, right? You try and keep your feet straight and your hips straight as you do it, right? But just pick up the shinai and swing it every day, all right? Because the biggest hurdle for beginners is crossing the barrier. And it's not even beginners. I'm sorry, there's people I know that are 4th dan and 5th dan that haven't got across this barrier yet, right? You need to swing the shinai hundreds of thousands of times before it starts to feel natural, okay? I'm going to repeat that. You need to swing the shinai hundreds of thousands of times before it starts to feel natural. So what I'm suggesting is you pick it up and you swing it, all right? So you swing it 50 times straight up and down, right? Stepping forward and back, try to time it together, right? Then, men, back to 2 dan, men, back to 2 dan, men, back to 2 dan, then, men, 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 men. Do that 50 times a day, 100 times a day, 200, each one 50 times a day, each one 100 times a day. And I'm sure in 3 months, you'll see the progression in the dojo go up. I'm confident of it, all right? Yes, you'll pick up bad habits. But sorry, beginners pick up bad habits. They always do, all right? Then it's on you to recognize them and fix them, all right? So what I also recommend you do is if you have the ability to practice in front of a mirror, do the subudi in front of a mirror, that's great. If you don't, one thing I used to do when I was first starting out, I used to do it in my mum's back garden, right? And she had a window, like a kitchen window. And obviously, I made sure I kept my distance from the said window, but I could use my reflection in that to sort of semi-check if what I was doing looked sort of right. Okay, and do that. All right, or there's plenty. I've got plenty of videos about the form on subudi and stuff like that. Just watch that and follow what I say. Don't change any of it or invent anything. Yeah, and go to your dojo once or twice a week, and they'll put right your corrections and whatever you've been told, go away and practice them. I really don't like this, if I'm honest, right? This culture of no, don't practice at home, you'll learn bad habits. Like, has anybody ever tried to learn a musical instrument and the music teacher said to you, don't practice at home, don't want you learning bad habits? Like, what skill would a teacher tell you don't practice at home? Like, it doesn't make sense to me at all. Yeah, form is important in Kendo, but it's not the only thing that's important. You have to, as I say, becoming natural at swinging the shinai is a super important step that's super overlooked, to be honest. So yeah, I think it's important to practice at home, and go back to the dojo every week and take in the advice that you get for any bad habits you've got and work on fixing them the following week whilst you're practicing at home. That's my personal opinion, all right? And I'm saying that from someone that's what I did, all right? So, yeah. Hello, Christians there. I love my Vanguard Myrmidon, but my question is, what should be used to touch up the black part of the membuchi? As after the many thousand strikes, it's now white in some places. Yeah, this is natural, all right? So the membuchi, that's the bit that's usually painted black and red. Sometimes it's black and black, but it's mostly black and red. That connects the futon, the padding, to the mengane, that's the cage, all right? And it's also stitched to the uchiwa and the tenchi, which is the bit that's inside that sits around your face and goes against your forehead and your chin. That's the menbuchi. And that's painted. Traditionally, that's painted with urushi lacquer, but for the most part, that's not used that much these days because it's not only expensive, but it's very labor intensive to do it well. And I've seen in the past when membuchi have been painted with real urushi, but it's not been done properly. Like it probably needs at least 4 or 5 coats, and it needs at least probably 3 to 5 days to dry in between each coat, right? So you're looking at like an additional like 3, 4, 5 weeks in the production to have an urushi membuchi, and a lot of production places don't want to do that, so they won't wait as long for it to dry, or they'll use less number of coats and it chips off super fast. Now when it's done properly, it doesn't chip off so easy at all, but like I say, it's super rare that you get that, and it's only on very high-end bulgur. Instead, you tend to see a replacement with an oil lacquer. The one that's generally used is made from cashew nut oil, but that's not readily available. Sorry, in the West. It's super available in Japan, but for some reason I don't see it much in the West. But you can use any oil-based or enamel-based gloss black paint or lacquer. It will be fine. All right. What I've used before is I've even seen people use like gloss black nail polish. It's probably fine as well. Don't use marker pens because it'll be obvious. But I would use like what I've used before is like little enamel paints you could get. There's a company in the UK that does them. I don't think there's an English company, so I'm sure you can get it around Europe. But they like make little tin pots of paint. It's not tin, but like little metal pots of paint with little, like a bigger tin, like you put a thing in to pop the lid off, and they've got all different colours. It's designed for painting model aeroplanes, that sort of thing. That will be fine. As well, if it's a gloss finish, you want a gloss finish, all right, and that would do it, all right. But make sure it's fully dry before you use it. Next one, please explain about sutemi and how to build it. Thank you. Okay, so this is an interesting question. I can talk about sutemi, but the thing about so sutemi, right? Okay. I was going to say I can't talk about how to build it, but actually I can give you some idea. Sutemi means to throw the body away. Okay, to throw, throw the body away. It literally is written sutemi, like this. Okay, so this first one, we're back to Andy's Japanese classes. This one, this is where I always do this in these shows, and Miyuki's in somewhere in the house and she hears me, and afterwards she'll be like, your pronunciation is so bad. The ste from sutemi is steru. It means to throw away. Okay, like you throw the rubbish away. Okay, or the garbage, depending where you are, the trash, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's an everyday word. And then it means body in this case. All right, in this case, it means body. So it means to throw yourself away. All right. In other words, it means to abandon yourself to the strike without a care of whether you'll be struck or have it returned. And an element of this must exist in a waza for it really to truly be considered ippon, because you can't really connect. Like a strike, I feel, can't have proper zanshin without this. Okay, now zanshin is a very deep and complex concept. It's not just what happens after the hit, but it's actually what happens before and during it as well. But that's what sutemi is. It means like not like, when you sometimes see where like they'll be like hit and then they'll go, man, like, see if they hit first. They have to, you can't really get the ippon in this way. You can't make the successful strike. And the concept of sutemi, it's not even just for the criteria of ippon. I mean, winning points and stuff. I'm like, for a strike in Kendo to be like a kind of effective strike for our shugyo in terms of our own self-improvement, learning to accept this concept of sutemi, in other words, be willing to abandon our fears and give everything to the strike, is an important concept in Kendo as a whole. Okay. So, how do you build it? Kakarigeko. Kakarigeko is the best way to build it. Okay, you could do it with Chikomi a bit as well. Yeah, Kakarigeko, and doing this here's a controversial point. You ready? Do I want to say this on the air? This is a good question. Do I want to say this? Look, I don't want anyone to get upset or offended by what I'm about to say, right? Doing the keiko with the good high-level sensei. Now, the problem is that we don't have access to that for the most of us. And when I say a good high-level sensei, it depends what level you are. But the sensei has to know how to give you hikitate geiko. And unfortunately, lots of senseis don't. But if you have the opportunity to practice with the Hachidan sensei, this is why it's important. I've talked about this before. If you practice with the Hachidan sensei or high-level sensei, you can't turn it into a game of who can hit the most ippons. I mean, you could do, and you might win that game. But if you really want it to improve your kendo, the way to practice with those senseis is to try your best to hit them when they want you to hit them. So they will encourage you to hit in ever so subtle ways sometimes, but you'll feel like you need to hit now, and you must accept that. You must accept that, and you must throw into it. And then you'll catch the debana, you'll catch the kaishi, and that's the idea. Whether you can overcome your own ego to throw that to them without thinking, oh, but I want to hit them so that they think that I'm really good. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard ask, all right? But it's hard as well because lots of senseis are not used to doing this either. Because they've not necessarily, especially outside Japan, they've not come up through learning that way either. It took me a long time to figure that out. Whilst I was in Japan, I was just trying to batter all the senseis I could. Made me feel great until I realized that, all right, I've got this 78-year-old Nanadan sensei in front of me, or Hachidan sensei, it doesn't matter. Like, what am I proving by just doing these feints to kote and stuff like that? Or what am I proving by that? If I hit him when he invites me to hit through his semi, I can't beat him. So what does that mean? I can't beat him with my semi, right? So I have to learn through him hitting me. Sounds really weird, doesn't it? And I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's one way to develop semi. But we don't all have access to that, and I certainly don't anyway. But so Kakarieko is a good alternative. Okay. Excuse me. Hello, Sensei. Do you have any advice on running sessions effectively and teaching beginners, and also retaining them at uni level? Ooh, that's a difficult one. Look, retaining people at Kendo is always going to be difficult. It's always going to be difficult. All right. Because Kendo is not for everybody. Like, not everybody's going to like Kendo, and that's okay. That's okay. But it's just a fact. Kendo's hard, and it's not always fun. In fact, it's not fun more than it is fun. But for most of us that like Kendo, often the fun bits make up for the not fun bits. But sometimes it takes a while to understand those bits, especially for kids. Young people have got shortest attention span. It's super difficult. So I don't have a good answer for you, if I'm honest with you. You have to decide what your goal is. You have to decide what your goal is. Do you want a club, a uni club, that's full of people that are doing Kendo and having a great time, really enjoying themselves, really enjoying coming to practice, but are not progressing massively quickly in terms of on a technical level? Or do you want a club that does as much as possible correct and strong good Kendo, even if it means fewer people? It doesn't have to be one or the other. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that is a difficult thing to balance, because getting good and correct Kendo that does well requires hard work that's not always fun. So what I think you have to do is, for me, like in my dojo is a small dojo, okay? I have a very small dojo, all right? And for some reason, people are often surprised when I say that, but it's because I don't compromise on the fundamentals of Kendo. So my practice menu is the same every week. We haven't changed my practice menu for the last 3 months. I don't think we've done anything different in practice. I don't think there's been anything different. We've done the same thing every single time. Okay. And another another Kendo teacher in this country, that they asked me about what we was doing. I said that, and they said, "Well, don't your people get bored?" I said, "I don't care. I don't care." The ones that don't get bored still come, and those that do, they don't, and that's okay for me. That's okay for me, because I don't mind having a small club. I'm not trying to, run a Kendo empire in the country, and I'm not trying to do anything like that. I'm just trying to stick to the basics, and because I'm not qualified to make up my own stuff, so I just follow the basic stuff. But I think especially, so in terms of running sessions, I would personally keep it to that. Like, I'll tell you now, the menu in my club, we warm up, we do some saburi, we do kirikaishi. I have an individual kirikaishi. Our kirikaishi is not normal kirikaishi, I admit that, all right? At the moment, anyway. I might change it in the future, but for the last 6 months or so, we've done 3 laps of kirikaishi instead of 2. The first one, receiving on the men, so nice and correct. Second one is a door kirikaishi to build flexibility. And then the third one is on the shinai, the sort of normal one. And then men and through, okay? And we do that. We do everything 3 times. Okay, then we do a little bit of basic uchikomi, and most of the time it's just decided like 3 or 5 men strikes, large men, just to get things running, right? Okay, so we're not a young club, we're not a uni club, right? We've got ages from 16 to people in the 70s in our club, so it's some basic uchikomi, and then we just do kihon, men, kote men, do, gyakudo, tsuki, Oji-waza against men, Oji-waza against kote. Then we take a break. Then we do some jigeko, and then we do a light bit of kind of kakari geiko. What we've recently been doing is doing a kirikaishi, but 2 laps, normal 2-lap kirikaishi. Man. After the first lap, then we'll do some butsukari geiko. So men, hiki, kote, men, hiki, do, and then men, and then the second half kirikaishi and men. We'll do that a couple of times, and that'll do, right? It's simple. And I see improvement in my club, and I get lots of people visiting from other clubs, especially around grading times. We have a really good record in my club for getting people through gradings, especially higher level gradings. People come to our club when they want to get through 5th dan, 6th dan, 7th dan. So that's something I'm proud of, because it's just simple, right? But I'm not there to entertain people. But I think if it's a uni club, you've got to be a bit different. You've got to try and get a good atmosphere. You've got to get everybody positive, on board, enjoying themselves, wanting to do Kendo, wanting to do better, and have a great time with their friends. I think that's a really important aspect. Okay, I don't have a great deal of experience of that. Oh dear. I know that wasn't a brilliant answer to your question. I'm sorry. I have a question when it comes to accessory equipment for Kendo. I have a calf, Achilles, and heel protector, and half tabi for both legs. All of my equipment was purchased from not KendoStar. I've censored that. Would I be allowed to wear all of that for competition? I'm very curious. As a general rule, yes, you would be able to. Some tournaments would probably ask you to talk to the Shimpan Shunin of the court and tell them that you're wearing those supports, especially the half tabi, and just check they're okay with it. But for the most part, they would probably say yes. All right, probably say yes. On the flip side, another controversial opinion. You ready? Ready for a controversial opinion? You should only wear those sort of protectors or supporters if they're absolutely necessary. Okay, really, you should. Really, okay, because they're not part of the stipulated Kendoga. All right, so it's best not to if you can help it, all right? Okay. Because the kote takes longer to dry, is it okay to put the kote on top of a heater vent to allow airflow? So this was on a video that I did about washing the kote. I need to update that video if I'm honest with you, but okay. Yes, you could. Obviously, the kote do take a long time to dry. If you got a heater that's got vents, you could potentially do that, but I'd be very careful not to leave it there too long. Definitely don't leave it unattended. You could do that, but I'd be also a little bit careful of I wouldn't want to damage them. Don't want to burn them or anything. One thing you could do, it doesn't need to be hot. You could use a fan, like an electric fan, and put them on them, that you'll be surprised how much time that takes out of drying them as well. But still, it could take a couple of days for a pericle day. Sensei, then what would be your recommendation for improving Ashisabaki? As a tall and kind of clumsy player, footwork is my greatest challenge. Okay, so look, we still got a lot to do. I know we're already half an hour into this. I'm gonna quick fire these. This was on the one from a couple of weeks ago when I said that if there was something I could go back and tell myself, or wish I knew earlier, it was to improve my Ashisabaki. Look, I'm sorry. This is the fact. I'm gonna be straight with you. Okay, first off, footwork is everybody's greatest challenge. It's not because you're tall, and it's not because you're kind of clumsy. Everybody is kind of clumsy when they're doing Kendo, and everybody is struggling with footwork. Everybody. That's what's hard about it, okay? So it's not that it's like a particularly difficult issue for you. It's difficult for everybody, all right? Now, what I am going to say is that there isn't a recommendation for improving Ashisabaki other than to practice it a lot. That's the only answer. That's why I wish I'd understood that sooner, yeah? There's no quick fix. There's no do this and it'll get better quicker. There's none. There isn't one. Yeah, there's stuff you can do, but like, I've seen people do stuff with like rubber bands and stuff like that. But I wouldn't, look, you just need to focus on it as much as possible when you're practicing, and practice it as much as you can. And the thing to focus on is bringing the left foot up quickly behind the right, okay? When you do suburi, men, not men, but men, yeah? When you do your suriashi or kuriashi across the room, quickly push on the left, right? You have to think and focus on those things and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. So unfortunately, there just is not a quick fix. It just doesn't exist. All right, that's the difficulty of it. Okay, I know you can do it. You can do it. Hi Sensei, a few questions related to Shinai that I hope you can help with. I'm sure this has been asked before, and I understand it varies greatly, but how much practice do you expect to get out of any given bamboo Shinai? Could you please explain the differences in the types of bamboo as they relate to Shinai? Is it simply that Marake is the best type, or is there more nuance? Is there an appreciable difference at all to you or to the average reasonably experienced Kendoka? Finally, could you please explain a bit how the smoking process works for the bamboo and how that affects the Shinai? Does it really improve durability? I ask because I had a bad experience of not one but two premium Shinai breaking after only a couple of weeks. Notably, these Shinai were not from KendoStar. Everyone knows KS does not have these quality control issues, and I don't know for sure whether they were actually smoked, but they were certainly dark in colour. Thank you. Okay, good question. Good question. There is not an answer I can give you as how much practice you can expect to get out of any given bamboo Shinai. It's, like you're asking me the equivalent of how many lottery tickets should I expect to buy before I can expect to win, right? I don't know. Okay, and the reason for that is because let me give you myself as an example. Okay, when I was a beginner, I probably didn't break Shinai all that often, and then I started to get a little bit better. When I got to about third dan, I started breaking Shinai almost every week. Okay, almost every week, to a point where I was getting very frustrated. Okay, and then over the years, it got fewer and further between. Now, granted, I don't practice as much as I have done in the past, okay? But even when I was living in Japan and I was practicing 8 or 9 times a week, all right? Now, I don't use one Shinai until it breaks. So this is the other thing that makes it difficult, all right? I usually have a handful of Shinai that I'm rotating between, all right? And I'll rotate between them all, and generally I won't see a break in them for quite a significant time. All right, and that time hasn't changed that much for me. I generally expect to get about 6 months or so out of a Shinai. Okay, I generally expect to. Okay, maybe longer, often longer, but it depends as well. The current batch of Shinai that I'm rotating with now, there's 3 of them. There was 4, and I started using them probably less than a year ago. Less than a year ago. I'd say 8 or 9 months ago. I broke one about 2 months ago. Okay, I broke one about 2 months ago, and 2 more are now starting to splinter, right? Now, in fairness, these shinai, I'm using like 3 of them were junki shinai. Junki, which is a jisengata. I shouldn't really be bashing them around doing gyakudo and stuff like that in our everyday kihon, but I have been doing, and it still took me that to break it, right? Now, that's not necessarily because the shinai is super tough. It's not, right? It is also how you use the shinai, okay? How you use the shinai. Now, I'm going to really shock you. Say another this is the day of controversial stuff, right? But I've never oiled them once, and I don't. I'm too lazy. I don't do it. And I haven't done it for years. I haven't taken apart and oiled one of my shinai for years. Now, that's bad, all right? That's bad. I don't recommend, okay? But I'm too lazy, all right? However, a large part of shinai breakage, part of it's wear and tear and use, yeah? But like, as I said, when I was like 3rd dan, I was smashing them every week, and that was because of my technical lack of ability. All right, that was my poor technique that was breaking shinai. Okay, my right hand was too strong, and I was hitting in the wrong way. Okay, I was trying to generate power, but not in the right way. Okay, I was trying to do it with my upper body, and I didn't understand how to use my lower body. So breaking the shinai was common, and it was my fault. It wasn't the shinai's fault. And even now, there are sometimes you get a freak accident. All right. I've had ones where I had some nice shinai that I just broke, like doing a ski, and someone did this and it broke. It's kind of annoying. Or I've had ones even where, you know, even now I've used them for a couple of weeks and they broke. And I went, oh, okay, that's a bit of a, you know, but you can't control it. It's a natural product. It's impossible. And this is why, you know, I appreciate you saying this, that the ones that you've had that are broken after a couple of weeks are not from KendoStar. And it you know, but I can't say to you that definitely wouldn't happen with a shinai from KendoStar either, because there's too many variables. There's too many variables. You can't definitely put it on the shinai itself, okay, or the quality of the shinai. Even the best quality shinai, even the best quality materials, they can sometimes have invisible sort of, you know, I don't even want to say defects, but, you know, it's a natural material. You can't, you know, we can't see into inside them and stuff like that. And we don't know. All right. And then, also, as I say, there's also the point that there's part of it's a user error, right? So we've got to consider that. In terms of the differences of bamboo, right, there's 2 main types of bamboo that's used. There's a couple of others, but the main ones is madake and keichiku. Okay, madake is generally the original species of bamboo that originates from Japan, and keichiku originates from Taiwan. Okay, now in the past, madake was expensive and keichiku was cheap, so there was a impression that madake is better than keichiku, but in reality, nowadays, it's not really like that, because the vast majority of madake, although it's a Japanese species, it's grown in China. Okay, same with keichiku. Much of it's not even grown in Taiwan. It's grown in China. And the reason that it's actually madake is a little bit rarer is because the bamboo shoots that is used for eating doesn't taste that good for madake. It tastes better from the keichiku, apparently. So that's why you find the keichiku bamboo is generally more common. Apparently, that's what I was told. But is one better than the other? No. In my opinion, no. Okay? No. Because it's a more expensive material, sometimes you tend to find like more attention or more options become available in the variety of shinai that there are made in madake, right? On a real level, most kendoka might not notice the difference between the two, but if you gain some experience and you have got sensitive tenuchi, then madake is noticeably more rigid than keichiku. Keichiku is more noticeably more flexible. Okay, it's more flexible. Okay, so it feels different at the point of impact. Okay. in the past, I've had a preference for Keichiko over Madake because I preferred the more flexible shinai. But these days, Madake with the actually I find makes the nicer sound when you hit the datotu, even if it feels a little bit more rigid. That's that. What you can find is Madake can be more brittle because of that, especially if your tenuichi is not as accomplished. Okay, so that might be, if it depends what level you're at. I have no idea what level you are, the person asking this question. But if this is why, if you're quite new to Kendo, buying expensive Madake shinai is not necessarily always a good idea because you could easily break them if you haven't developed your tenuichi. In terms of the smoking process, when they smoke the bamboo, essentially it's supposed to infuse it with carbon. Right now, whether that makes them more durable or not, I think is kind of debatable. All right, lots of people say it does. Lots of people say, including myself, to be honest, I haven't found a noticeable difference. All right, some people just like the appearance of it, and that's fine as well. Okay, that's fine as well. I personally haven't been a fan of smoked ones myself because again, I find them. That smoking process tends to make them a bit more rigid. Okay, it tends to make them a bit more rigid. Now, I should probably give them another try because I haven't tried them for many years. All right, because I've got this kind of feeling that I feel like they're too rigid. So maybe I'll give them another try. I'm not prepared to say they're definitely more durable because there's no hard evidence to say yes they are. Just people's anecdotal feelings. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so I hope that kind of answers it. Okay. Dear Sensei, with a new line of Kendogi available, I should be grateful for your advice on the choice of KS Kendogi to wear. For everyday Keiko, for visiting Keiko, for an international seminar hosted by famous Nanadan or Hachidan, for grading or for Shiai. Look, we've got lots of options, all right? And it's all right, it depends on what you like. It depends on what you like, all right? Now, you say new line of Kendogi. What you're referring to, obviously, is the new, the Senpu and Sen-o Hakama Kendogi and Hakama set, which is a synthetic set that looks like a cotton set that we have, all right? For everyday Keiko, right, if you're just starting, and it depends what you're in, what level you're at and what you prefer. Some people cannot stand the feeling of polyester, especially the sort of jersey-style ones that you get from a very synthetic Kendogi, which is why the Senpu is a great option because it looks and feels like a cotton one, but it's got the practicality of a synthetic. For everyday Keiko, if you're a beginner, the essential one's fine, all right? And if you're kind of a little bit more advanced or you want something that's a little bit more, higher quality, then the kachi is a great choice. The kachi is 100% polyester. It's washable. It's easy to care for. Pleats are stitched in. Easy to look after. Easy to fold. All right. It does, however, feel and look a little bit like more like a synthetic one. It doesn't look the same as a cotton Aizome Hakama and Kendogi. All right. So it's great for Keiko. You could wear it for Shiai as well, but I wouldn't recommend it. Really, for Shiai grading, you should wear a cotton Hakama, really. But I'll get to that, all right? So for everyday Keiko, that's an option. Now, at this point in my Kendo development, I've started to feel like, unless it's extremely hot, if it's very, very hot, then the kachi is a great choice. But in the winter, or when it's not as hot, or when, I sometimes feel like, I don't like bringing up my sort of grade, but at the grade that I'm at, I sometimes feel like I probably shouldn't wear the polyester looking Kendogi. I should probably wear one that looks like a men Kendogi. But men means a cotton Kendogi. So that's why I got into getting the Senpu and the Sen-o. So I actually wear the Senpu and the Sen-o a lot recently for Keiko. Because I can wear it. It looks like a cotton Hakama, and then I can put it in the washing machine and it's fine. All right. So they're great for that. And for visiting Keiko, I think you can say the same. All right. Now, if you definitely don't like the synthetic ones, then something like the Kiai is also a great choice because it's a very lightweight cotton one, all right? But you're dealing with eyes numbing at that point, all right? So it's a bit harder to care for, can't be washed as easily, it's going to rub glue on you, yeah? But if you want something lightweight, especially for the summer, something that's going to dry quickly, that's great. And that's really good for a seminar as well because it's easy to travel with, okay? But then you've also got like the kurenai is a good option here. And for any of these, C, D, and E, I would say any of the Kiai is a good choice. The kurenai is a really good sweet spot, really, if you don't want to get into something really expensive like the kimboshi, right? Is a really good choice as well. Because the kurenai like sits in the middle. It looks like a more traditional, heavier kendogi. It's aizome, it's cotton, it looks smart. But it's a little bit lighter. If you definitely want that heavy feel, some people like to have a heavy feeling hakama and kendogi, then the kimboshi is the one for you to go for, right? That the kimboshi is the sort of higher grade one that we do. We've also got the Hirameki FT. Now the Hirameki FT is in our imported series. It's a blend of cotton and polyester. Again, it looks pretty much exactly like a cotton one, but it's aizome dyed. Okay, it's aizome dyed. Now, what I do like about the Hirameki FT is I do like the fabric that they use in the hakama. It makes the hakama fall really nice, and the pleats sit really nice on me. So I actually wore that for my grading exam, and I've worn it for Shiai as well, because it's lightweight too. It's lightweight as well. It's not super heavy. That being said, I also have the kanmuri. Okay, I also have the kanmuri. Now that's a really expensive set that's made in Japan. All right, and that's good for grading and for Shiai. Okay, it's good for grading for Shiai, but it's expensive. You don't need, it's not necessary for even for high level gradings to invest in that sort of thing. The only thing I'd say about the kanmuri is it's the Japanese made one. It's made with the Japanese market in mind. So what I found about it sort of considers itself something of a jissengata or a competition style uniform. So it's designed for a sort of slim fit. So even on my proportions, I find that the hakama is quite slim. Now, the side profile is good because it looks nice and straight. It makes me look thinner than I probably am. But the pleats don't sit great. They tend to open a little bit. So I would, unless you're a very thin build, I'd probably go for, if you wanted a very sort of prestigious, high level, high grade one, I'd look at something like the kimboshi, or even look at the Hirameki FT or the kurenai. Okay, but there's loads of choices, and it depends on what fits your budget and what fits your preferences. What look are you going for? All right. If you're unsure, just hit up our team, all right, and we'll give you some proper advice, okay, on your individual situation. Dear Sensei, how should you train to prepare for fourth dan when it comes to finding the right balance between Oji-waza and Shikake-waza? I always tend to fall back on either one or the other in keiko against a specific opponent. Hardly ever is there a good mix. Thanks for advice. Okay, it depends on your age, all right? If you're over 50, the balance should be more weighted towards Oji-waza than Shikake-waza, okay? If you're between 40 and 50, then it should be a good balance between the two. And if you're under 40, then I don't want to say it should be balanced on Shikake-waza because it shouldn't. It shouldn't. If you're under 50, then it should be a balance between the two. Let's put it that way, all right? But if you're over 50, then I'd put the balance a bit more towards Oji-waza, all right? Now, look, it's not necessarily a bad thing that you find certain waza work better against different opponents. In fact, that's probably a good thing. But you do need to be able to demonstrate. It's not even demonstrate. It's not about what you demonstrate at the exam, right? It's about what comes natural to your kendo, right? So you need to be in a position where you approach your opponent, you invite them to strike you, okay? You invite them to strike you. You want them to hit you so that if they come for you, you can bam debana or bam bam. You can do your Oji-waza. If they don't, yeah, If they don't, they're really not up for striking you, then you give them some more pressure. You give them some more. And if they're really not coming, that's the time for your Oji-waza. Now, your Shikake-waza. Now, you don't throw it out randomly. Yeah? Okay, man, you watch them. Think what's likely to happen. If I go for men now, what is going to happen? Are they going to block? Or are they going to attack? Or are they going to do Oji-waza? Are they trying to do the Oji-waza? I think they're trying to do the Oji-waza. So I'll make it look like I'm going to go for men. Bam, kote, yeah? This is the sort of thing I'm talking about. So it's not about not being mindless. It doesn't matter if it's Oji-waza, Shikake-waza, whatever. But you have to go in there, not necessarily with a plan because, you know, the plans change. But you have to go in there with the mindset of keeping an eye on watching what's going to happen and responding to it appropriately. All right? So if you're going to do the Oji-waza, you have to get them to hit you. So you first try to get them to hit you. If they keep getting you to hit, they keep hitting you when you want them to, then just do the Oji-waza or debana. You don't need to do the Shikake-waza in that case. All right? But if they're like waiting to do the Oji-waza or something like that, that's when you have to think about, okay, well, how am I going to find this route to Shikake-waza? All right? I know it's not a super clear answer, but it's not a super clear issue. Hi Sensei, I'm 4th dan and currently preparing for my Godan exam. During practice, I sometimes face partners who prefer to come much closer than my natural Isoku Ito no Mai. I do not feel comfortable or at an advantage at that closer distance. I found some success with Shikake-waza, however, as I prepare for Godan, I'm trying to develop more Aiki, Semei, Ayuchi, etc. The difficulty I encounter is that at close distance, it feels like I am in their territory, and before reaching that point, they either simply walk in or I attack from my preferred distance but lose the feeling of Aiki I'm looking for. In those moments, it feels as though I'm attacking alone rather than creating opportunity. Yeah, I expect so. How can I maintain them away while still creating pressure and semi? This is something I especially experience when there is a big discrepancy in Isoku Ito no Mai. Okay, this is good. Okay, I like this question. Okay, right. Here's the issue. There's one sentence in this that highlights the issue. I do not feel comfortable or an advantage at that closer distance. All right? It feels like I am in their territory. There's your issue. There's your issue. Okay? Make it your territory. Make it your territory. It's no good. It's good. Right. It's good to be able to make a strike from further away than your opponent. So your distance is further than theirs. So they're at a disadvantage whilst you're at an advantage. That's good. But it's not good if they can negate that by coming in closer. And you're unable to, you don't feel like you can, that you feel like you're in their territory when things get close. The best tall players that can hit from a long way away are also really good at fighting at close distance. Okay? Because then you've got no options to fight them. Right? So, if the first thing is from here, right? You're at your kamae here, and good, they're coming to the close distance. Okay, fine. So what are you going to do? Well, you come here now. You're here now. What are you going to do what are you going to do? Yeah? You came this close, now what? Man, bam, bam, or bam, debana. Debana should be easy. Yeah, especially if there's a, difference in height. I'm not saying that, I know you didn't mention that, right? Or if there is, yeah? Okay, all right, you want to come like close? Okay, so what are you going to do? You're here now. Let's see what you've got, all right? Oh, and then maybe they're going to get scared because they think, oh, wait a second, my semi is not working. This person's not afraid of me even though I'm past their ideal distance. What am I going to do? And that's when you're going to go like this, and they're going to panic, and they're either going to go like this or they're going to hit. And if they hit, you're going to hit. And if they go like this, you're going to hit them where they're not blocking, right? And then they're going to be like, oh, crikey, when I get to that distance, I'm in trouble. What am I going to do? And then they're going to be a little bit probably more cautious of stepping in that way. Or even if they do, you're here and then they step into here, right? There's nothing wrong with you doing the semikaisi and moving back to here and then moving back again or whatever. But the problem is the mindset, right? The problem is the mindset. You don't feel comfortable or an advantage of that closer distance and feels like it's their territory. That's what you have to change. That's what you have to change. Okay, you're here now. What are you going to do? Let's see. Show me. Yeah, and then deal with what it is they came to show you. That's the key. So you cannot, right? You cannot, at the end of the day, like, I know we often talk about, oh, you have to, I want them to feel like they can't step in. Like, who's going to do that? Like, no way, right? I'm sorry. If I'm against somebody that's 6'5", right, and they can reach me from this far distance, there's no way I'm hanging around there. I don't care how strong their semi is. I'm getting into where I can hit them. There's no way I'm hanging around at a far distance. Do you know what I mean? And there's nothing they can do to control me. There's nothing they could do that would make me scared to step in, because it's more scary to stay where I am, right? Because I'm not a super tall person, I'm only 6'1", so... so, I know the situation. There's no way I'm doing that. There's no one in this earth that's going to stop me getting to the Mai that I want to get to. They're not that scary, because it's more scary for me to stay in their distance. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's really idealist to say, like, oh no, you should keep them back with your semi or something like that, because it's just not possible. It's not on the cards. You know what I'm saying? You just have to be willing to deal with them, right? Just willing to deal with them. Like, okay, cool. And then you want to step there. So what? So you're here now. Let's see. Yeah? And then you've got to respond. Okay? I hope that makes sense, all right? I hope that makes sense. Hi, Sensei. Since Fumikomi-ashi is not an official requirement, is it possible to maintain proper Kikentai Ichi? It's not Ichi, it's Ichi. And achieve Yuko Datotsu with Nikkyudo style strikes. I don't know what Nikkyudo means. Maybe mean Nikkyodo or Ikkyodo, whatever. What would you adjust from the original Suburi practice when using this in Jigeko? So you mean like using Suriashi instead of Fumikomi-ashi? Of course it's possible. Of course it's possible to make strikes with Kikentai no Ichi and Yuko Datotsu using Suriashi instead of Fumikomi. Happens a lot, okay? Door strikes. Men nuki do, men kaishi do. You don't need to do Fumikomi. Bam bam, you can do Suriashi with Ayumi-ashi. Yeah? Bam bam, you don't need to stamp, all right? Sometimes with some other Oji-waza, Suriage, you don't necessarily need to, all right? There's even, you can see high-level senseis often do a kote strike where they use a Suriashi instead of Fumikomi-ashi. It's pretty cool. However, it's very difficult, okay? It's very difficult because you are removing dynamicism. Is that a word? You're removing the explosive power from your strikes, okay? So you can't make the strike as quickly. All right, it's not possible to make it as quickly, all right? And you won't, the strike will naturally have, like, part of the Fumikomi is transferring your body weight to the shinai, so it's going to be really hard to make a strike that's going to meet the criteria of Tsuyosa or Sayet, power and crisp sharpness, right? It's not impossible, but it's difficult. It's difficult, all right? And it's not, I am concerned with, I don't want to encourage it too much. In other words, you can do it in specific cases, as I mentioned, but it shouldn't be the core of what you're doing, all right? And it shouldn't be an excuse not to learn how to do Fumikomi, which a lot of people will use as, right? You have to do the Fumikomi as a general rule, all right? It's not necessarily for Kikentai no Ichi, it's just for the sake of doing Kendo correctly, okay, and effectively, okay? Hi, Sensei, please talk about Taiatari Tsubazariai when tall and short people engage. Does the taller person have to lower their hands or the shorter person raise theirs? Or is it just kind of work it out? Thanks. I hope you and your family are well. Yeah, we're all well. Thank you very much. It's this one. You have to kind of work it out. Okay. In Kendo, there has to be an element, well, there has to be a large element of what's called aiki. In other words, a connection with the two players where you work together whilst also being in combat. Okay. Now, I know that's a bit of a paradox, but if you're with a tall person and you're a short person or vice versa, you have to find a happy medium with that tsubazariai so that one of you is not taking advantage of the situation and that you are still trying to stick to the principles of Kendo. All right. So you have to kind of work it out. All right. It's like lots of things. It's like lots of things in Kendo. It's not just, well, it's their fault or my fault. Yeah. There's lots of things where you have to work it out together, despite being on the opposing sides of trying to achieve Ippon. Okay. Hello, fellow ranters. So I have a question about performance anxiety. How come when somebody, someone, definitely not me, spends time working on specific waza, say something like degote, and its timing and the strike and how to do it with good pressure, timing and follow through repeatedly in practice with multiple partners, complemented by a sensei, and when the sensei asks that person to demo for everyone, that person, again, definitely not me, scuffs it up in front of everybody back to back. Have you had such an experience? Also remember to shop at KendoStar. Thanks as always. Yeah, that's great. I agree with you, and I have definitely had that experience. Of course, it's just normal, isn't it? It's nerves. Yeah, it's part of it, isn't it? Right. So it's hard. It's difficult. Sometimes it happens to me all the time, especially when I'm trying to teach people. You know, I have to teach someone katate zugi or something. I had to bring up katate zugi the other week, and I had to show. You know, so really hard was I'm not very good at. So of course I missed a few. So of course that happens. All right. So you just have to chalk it up to experience. There's no magic pill to get away from that. All right. You just have to be like, and just keep going. All right. Happens to everyone. Happens to the best of us. Happens to the best of us. I've literally seen all Japan champions and 8th dan senseis do the same thing. Okay. I've literally seen it. So don't worry. Hello, Sensei. I talked to one of my Kendo friends recently, and this one believes that people should study their opponents in Keiko and Shiai, etc. Yeah, that's fine. Is calculation to hit techniques considered conceited? In the documentary, A Single Blow, Eiga Sensei talked briefly about how his Kaishido didn't counter Miyazaki Sensei's men strike in a quarterfinal of the AJKC in 1999. In that match, Miyazaki Sensei chose to hit men. He likely knew Eiga Sensei had a great Oji-waza from the Japan team training. How did Miyazaki Sensei take into consideration about Eiga Sensei's skills back then to choose to hit that Ippon? I hope I'm close to making sense. One more question. Nanahoshi men, kote, and myrmidon tare. Do you think this combination will turn out great? Okay. So no, I don't think it's conceited or there's anything wrong with studying your opponents, especially in a competitive setting. Especially in a competitive setting. I think a lot of people are doing that right now in Europe, seeing as the European Championships draw was released yesterday. I think that's perfectly normal. Okay. Now, what happened in that, I can't remember the scene off the top of my head, but I do know what you're talking about. When in A Single Blow, Eiga Sensei is talking about his match with Miyazaki Masahiro Sensei in 1999, when Miyazaki Sensei is super famous for having brilliant men. So Eiga Sensei went in with the idea of hitting a brilliant Kaishido, and at the time in the match, Miyazaki comes to the men. Eiga goes bam bam, does this beautiful Kaishido as well. Okay, and the men is awarded. The men is awarded. All right. Now I'd have to go back and listen to exactly what Eiga Sensei said, which I'm going to go and do. Okay, so look, I found the thing on YouTube. I hope I don't get any sort of copyright strike for this. We'll keep this short. But this is the section from the documentary talking about. White player is Eiga Sensei, red is Miyazaki Sensei. So we'll have a look and go through what happened. Right. 大会にかけていた映画さんが宮崎選手得意の面に返し技で勝つ作戦を練っていました。Okay, so the narrator is saying that Eiga Sensei knew that Miyazaki Sensei's men was super strong and very famous, so his plan was to go in with the Kaishi-waza. 試合開始から3分10秒。狙い通り宮崎選手の面に胴を返したと感じました。宮崎選手の面に胴を返したと感じました。Okay, so one more time. 試合開始から3分10秒。So he says after 3 minutes and 10 seconds of the match, 狙い通り宮崎選手の面に So as expected, as he was aiming for, Miyazaki's men came. And he did the Kaishido. However, the judgment was for Miyazaki. At the time, Eiga could not believe it.
3人の審判は映画さんの返し道ではなく映画さんが前に出る瞬間を捉えて放った宮崎選手の面を一本とみなしたのです。捉えて放るの
So it's a bit complicated, but it says
3人の審判は映画さんの返し道ではなく
So the 3 Shimpan, their judgment wasn't for Eiga's door.
映画さんが前に出る瞬間を捉えて放った宮崎選手の面を一本とみなしたのです。
But they recognized the ippon of Miyazaki's men, which happened at the instant Eiga stepped in.
この一本が勝ちにこだわってきた映画さんの剣道を変えることになりました。
And this ippon became the thing that changed Eiga from always focusing on just winning. It's not a super accurate translation, by the way. I'm doing this off ear, and it's like I'm trying to convey the meaning rather than the exact words. So I thought that I had invited him to hit men so that I could do the door. But it was men. It was awarded men. And then when I watched the video to try to figure out why, I even thought it was the menari. Watching the video from the TV station NHK. And even I thought it was men, so I couldn't help but wonder why. What is it about that? Even though I had this plan, this strategy against Miyazaki's brilliant men to do the Kaishido, and I did it. But Miyazaki's men was so confident, I guess, like this was my men.
その時に皆さん私のどうとかを警戒したんじゃなくて、その瞬間その一本にかけて捨て切って面を打って、その時に皆さん私のどうとかを警戒したんじゃなくて、その瞬間その一本にかけて捨て切って面を打って。
So even though I was planning to do this door, Miyazaki Sensei was willing to give everything up and throw everything into this men strike.
私は考えて作戦を練って打った技との違いの差かなと思ったんですよね。
Where so that's a totally different level to what I was doing, which was simply planning and building a strategy. In other words, what he's saying, this isn't the words he's saying, this is my commentary, is that the quality of Miyazaki's men, where he faced the prospect of the calculated kaishido that Eiga-san was surely planning, and still threw his everything into that ippon for men, made that waza of a different caliber. That's his comments on it, okay? So what he's saying there, okay? What he's saying there, in effect, it's not that it's wrong to calculate or have a strategy. What he's saying is that strategy was overwhelmed by the caliber of Miyazaki Sensei's men. Okay, that's it. I don't fully understand it. It's well above my pay grade, but that's what he said. I think it's kind of an interesting take, and I like it. Nanohoshi Men, Kote, and Myrmidon Tare. That's an almost perfect set. It would be even more perfect if you had a Nanohoshi Tare as well. The Myrmidon Tare is great. Myrmidon Tare is great. It really is. I'm a bit over the top in terms of my kind of OCD on Borga. I like the men and the Tare to match. That's just me. All right. It's not just me, but that's one thing. But listen, Nanohoshi Men, chef's kiss. Kote and the mermaid on tare. Great. It's a great combination. You can't go wrong with that. You would have a great time at Keiko every time you went. No question this time. Just a big thank you for sharing your tips. So your thoughts on these rants, and ask you for more tip of the week clips, technical vids, and all of the content you generously share on YouTube. I find it really useful, and your explanations are clear and essential to me and many others. I'm positively sure. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much. Tip of the week. It'll be coming back soon. Please give me ideas of what you'd like to see in tip of the week. Leave me a comment. What would you like me to cover in tip of the week? All right, because I've done a lot already, and I'm kind of running out of ideas. All right, so give me some tips on what you'd like to see in tip of the week. Okay. Okay, we're at the last one. All right, I know we're over an hour and a bit now, so 3 questions today. Okay, let's get through these. 1, say I do semi and my opponent responds with a men strike. My response will be to do the same semi again and do a counter for the men strike, so just kaishido. But somehow the opponent throws kote instead of men and I get scored on. Am I missing a step in my semi where I confirm what the opponent is targeting? I feel like higher level practitioners have this step unless my men and kote looks different, so it's apparent when I'm gonna hit next. Okay, good. 2, in my dojo, we just did a simulation for moving around on a slippery floor to prepare for a tournament. I found that it's very difficult to generate power since the left foot keeps slipping. I get that we can put our feet close together or having smaller steps, but I'm slightly not confident I can change my habits very close to the tournament. Any tips on this? And 3, I have trouble in the situation where I'm 1-0 down and the opponent goes into hyper defense mode, especially with those that run at you and come to Super Zeria and sticks to you to waste time. Do you have any advice other than don't be drawn 1-0 down in the first place? Lastly, not a question, but I've been using my Victory Gen 3 for this tournament. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Okay, so 1, yes, you're missing a step. You're missing the bit where you pay attention to what the other side's doing. All right, you do the semi. They come for men, bam, so you defend, right? You don't just let them hit you, right? Bam, you defend. Okay, he wants to hit men like that. Okay, fine. So oh, this time he came for kote. Okay, fine. All right, fine. Okay. You know, it's not just based off one interaction, first of all. Second, you kind of get a feel for what they're likely to do based on the movements. And this is why these senseis, high-level senseis, can do this quickly, because they've done this thousands and thousands of times, and they've already got a feel for what's likely to happen, all right? But it will come with more practice, all right? Like, the key is you're going through the right process. 2, in terms of the slippery floor, there's not a lot of tips. What I can do, all I can say is, yeah, bring your feet closer together. Try to keep your weight a little bit more on your left leg than you normally would. But don't put your heel down. I hate practicing on slippery floors as well. I'm not very good at it, but that's all I can say. Now, when you're in a situation where you're 1-0 down and the opponent goes into defense mode, there's only so far they can go before they're going to start getting penalized. All right? There's only so far they can go before they can start getting penalized. But in the meantime, simply, you have to know more techniques, because they can't protect everything at once. So you have to get better at Hiki-waza. You have to get better at hitting where they're not defending. So that might mean doing semi to this side, hitting on this side. It might semi to men, hitting on the kote. It might mean letting them come in and then hitting a Hiki-waza. All right? So it's only a case of just improving the repertoire of techniques that you have access to. All right? It's hard, though. It's a hard situation to be in. It's a hard situation to be in. Okay? And there we go. We're at the end of the show. I know it's a long one. Thank you for joining me until the end. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, shop at KendoStar, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.